go. We're going to pretend that the first few minutes didn't just happen. Mic was on, sound was on, but the sound over here switched off. Not good. So, good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're fitting well. Insomnia got me properly last night. I was sat right here, 4:10 this morning, wide awake, cup of tea in my hand, but desperate to sleep. Anyway, enough of my woes. Is Demolition an industry in crisis? Well, it most certainly feels like it. We lost McCormack, Demolition and Scrib Group in November last year. Yesterday, we brought you the news that Waldridge Contractors had collapsed, and today we are reporting exclusively that Solihull-based Bluecon has become the latest demolition company, UK demolition company, should I say, to go under in the space of just 3 months. 4 in 3 months. You can read the details, such as they are, over on demolitionnews.com right now. So even though I got, at best, 2 hours sleep last night, we have quickly pulled together a second live show for today, because my personal feeling is this is something that needs addressing. That second live show will be called that, an industry in crisis. And our plan is basically to pick apart the demise of those 4 companies, to look at the likely and unlikely causes, and to try and predict if any more companies are likely to follow Scrib, McCormack, Waldridge and now Bluecon into the demolition Deadpool. We're going to be back here live at 1 p.m. today, and I realise that's going to be very inconvenient for some of you, and I do understand that, but I hope you will join us if you possibly can, because there's lots to discuss. But between now and then, there is the small matter of today's show. So I've already done the intro. So it is Tuesday, the 6th of February, 2024. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. Well, the one thing I didn't do, actually, while I'm about it, I didn't roll the question of the day because I was too busy trying to sort out my sound. It is Tuesday, the 6th of February. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Develon unveils 2 new mini excavators, and our friend Demi Lition has all the details. We're headed down under for a crane demolition like no other. The pivotal role played by the Cat rental store, and we're going for a spin in the Case 651G wheel loader. Plus, we're holding out for a hero with Liebherr. But before we get to all of that, there is the small matter of our latest mystery machine to take care of. So let's roll the animation and see if we can get this show back on track, shall we? Yes, and apologies to all of those that told me the microphone, well, the microphone was on, the sound was on, but the sound over here was not. My apologies for that. And as I say, all those that pointed it out, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to quickly respond to this one. Gary Muirhead says, is there another big name demo company next? Possibly. The problem I have, and I will explain this more in today's or this afternoon show, is a lot of the news that we get. I mean, by the time Squib, for example, had gone under, I'd been listening to 6 months of rumor and speculation, and a lot of that rumor and speculation, I mean, for every company that goes under, I'm probably watching another 20 that are perfectly fine, but there's a bit of mischief making, and their local rivals are trying to spread rumor and false stories and what have you. So these things take a long time to pan out, but certainly there are a few big names on my watch list at the moment. None of that has got anything to do with our mystery machine, which looks like, I was going to say it looks like this. It doesn't look like this. Only a bit of it looks like this. Here we are. What is that? That is our mystery machine. That's the one you need to identify. Now, while you're figuring that out, or trying to figure that out, I'm going to take it off the screen very quickly. I'm going to go and remind you very quickly of our question of the day. Yep, our question of the day today comes from our resident quizmaster and steel wrist fetishist, Mr. Gary Muirhead. And his question is this: if you could learn one new skill this year, what would it be? Personally, I'd love to learn to speak Italian. I don't need to be fluent. I don't spend enough time there for that. But it would be lovely to be able to hold a conversation in Italian. Absolutely love that. Love to be able to play guitar, but I've been there, tried that, failed miserably. And speaking of Italian, I should probably master English first, I guess. But that's my desire of a skill to learn this year. But what about you? Is there a skill you'd like to acquire or master this year? Let me know in the chat. Now we've got the sound sorted out. Now we've got the mystery machine. I tell you what, I'm going to give you let me just see if we've got anything there. Andy Darvell has taken an early stab at a JCB shovel. Let me give you a little bit more. There. Now you've got 2 windows to look at. If you've got any answers on what that machine might be, please let us know in the chat. And we are going very, very, very specific today. What I would like more than anything is to have one of these things go all the way from the beginning to the end of the show, so it lasts the entire show. Gary Muirhead is also feeling JCB-ish. He says a JCB 4CX Sitemaster. It is not. Now, where were we? Yes, we need our news intro. Let me get rid of that for now. You might recall that when Doosan announced its change of name to Develon, it said that the company was, or the name rather, was a play on develop onwards. Develop onwards, Develon. If you squint, you can, never mind. Well, the company is certainly doing that. It is developing onwards, and the company has actually unveiled a pair of new and improved mini excavators, and our resident AI news anchor, Ms. Demi Lition, has all the details.
Develon has launched the new DX17Z-7 zero-tail swing and DX19-7 Stage 5 compliant mini excavators. Both models are powered by the Kubota D902 diesel engine that delivers 12.1 kilowatts of power. Featuring the new shared global styling for the next generation Develon mini excavator range, the novel platform design, and new upper structures in the DX17Z-7 and DX19-7 provide increased durability and robustness. The compact dimensions of both machines makes them ideal for work in confined spaces on construction, landscaping, and utility projects. Both new models feature a 1.75-meter boom and a 1.03-meter arm as standard, with an optional longer 1.23-meter arm available for both models. The DX17Z-7 has a cast 180 kg counterweight as standard with an additional 85 kg of counterweight for use, with the optional longer arm. Furthermore, the tail swing radius in the DX17Z-7 has been reduced by 6.5% to only 645 mm compared to the previous model.
Thanks for that, Demi. Just before we went into that film, you may recall that I said that I would really, really, really like to have a mystery machine that lasted the entire show. Thought we might have one today. Andy Dalvell was guessing it is a JCB shovel. Close, but not. Gary Muirhead took a stab at the 4CX Sitemaster. Closer still, but not. JCB backhoe loader. Kind of. Dan Cullen says a New Holland 180, definitely not one of those. Alex says Mystery Machine is a Case 851E. It is not any of those things. It is not any of those things. Emma, please bear with me for 1 second, would you? But I can reveal, I don't need to reveal, that our Mystery Machine is, as said by Mr. Gary Muirhead, it is in fact a JCB 2CX Streetmaster. Precisely on the money. Thank you very much indeed for that, Gary. Now, didn't see this one coming, but I'm going to throw this up on the screen. Now, bear with me 1 second, because I do need to put the other glasses on. Bear with me for 2 ticks, because we've got a message coming in here that I do think is worth pausing for. Emma Moore says, I'm currently doing my nursing on the job, as it was the job my dad said I should always do. I'm almost done with, and 5 years since he was killed at work. 5 years ago today at Longannet Power Station. Emma, I don't know what to say to you. Obviously, we've been talking recently, and I've been writing recently, and there's a lot more to come actually about deaths on site and our response to them. I featured earlier this week the fact that the daughter of one of the guys killed at Redcar, John McKay, his daughter Kirsty had died without any resolution, and now we've got Emma here as well. Listen, Emma, I'm going to offer my condolences on behalf of myself, everybody that's here and behind the scenes, and obviously from Gary and from the rest of the team here. But I so wish that wasn't necessary. I can't imagine what an anniversary like this must feel like to you, Emma. I'm going to say this one from our friend Footy as well. He sent his condolences. All I could say really is, and it seems so trite and cliched, Emma, with every day nursing, I mean, there is no more noble profession in my opinion. Every single day you are doing your dad proud. I just so wish he was here to see it, and to pat you on the back and tell you how proud he was and how much he loves you. Emma, thank you for dropping by. I say this every time something like this comes up, and unfortunately it comes up with increasing regularity. I've spent 35 years writing about diggers. Away from here, away from the screen, I am emotionally distant, I would say. Not with my wife and not with my kids, but generally, I'm quite reserved and everything else, and I don't necessarily do emotion particularly well. I do think there are other people that could do this part of the job way better than I do. But as you can see, there's the outpouring. Another one, mixed on the sorry for your loss, Emma, but well done. Yes, well done indeed. Jim Turner says, sorry about your dad, Emma, and fair play for doing him proud. And well done for going into nurses. Hope you do well. Go very far, and congratulations on your career. I realise that on a day like today, Emma, that is going to be of precious little consolation to you, but our thoughts are very much with you and with your family. Oh, sorry, Emma. Can't imagine your pain, says Kerry Jones. Emma, listen, I'd love to say you're in my thoughts and my prayers. You are definitely in my thoughts. I'm not a praying type of person, but, our thoughts and our hearts do go out to you. Keep up the good work with the nursing. Make your dad even more proud than he already is, I'm sure. But thank you ever so much for dropping by and for putting the show a bit into perspective, if you know what I mean. I'll be right back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
There are some films that just need no introduction, and this that I'm about to play you is one such film. So sit back if you're able, crank up the volume, and prepare to meet the Hammerhead. We don't have any sound on that for some reason. I don't know why that would be. And I'm just going to go back to Emma, who says, thank you, everyone. No thanks necessary, Emma. I'm going to try and fix the issue with the sound on that video in just a second. But in the meantime, I don't know what's going on today. And I'm sure half of this is down to the fact that I'm half asleep. So let me roll this and I'll try and fix that one in the background. No, I'm playing it back to myself and I still can't get it to work. So I'll probably come back to that one tomorrow now because I'm not going to be able to fix it on the fly, unfortunately. And my apologies for that. Get a proper night's sleep, sir, and that will make so much difference. Now, I think we're all aware of, what are we aware of? We're all aware of the capabilities of the cat rental store. I'm assuming that's the case, but in case you're not, here's just a quick reminder of what the cat rental store can bring to a company.
Kramer's been in business since 1911. We've got a Midwest division running out of Wisconsin and Minnesota, and we've got a railroad group that works around Kansas and Nebraska a lot, and then our Mountain West division is taking care of Colorado, and we've done some work out in Utah. Our Pacific Northwest region operates up in Washington.
So the Rental National Account program through Caterpillar is a program that helps customers connect with other cat dealers across the nation. And it makes it easier for them to roll into a new city. They know who they are and they get the equipment they need with a priority status. We're unique with the Caterpillar Rental National Account program because we offer dirt equipment as well as allied, non-Caterpillar branded equipment, the boom lifts, scissors, everything else. So we offer the entire package. And as a whole, we are larger than any of our competitors put together. So it's a much more powerful network worldwide.
I'm the equipment manager for the company. So we have a national rental agreement. We have negotiated rates. Our estimators are able to use that when we go into different areas for estimating, bidding the projects. And the national account guys out of CAT Corporate, like when we're moving into an area that we're not real predominant in or familiar with, we'll contact them, they'll pave the way for us. And it helps facilitate and expedite our rental needs. We have about 1,400 pieces of company equipment, and we may have equipment finishing a project in one state. It won't finish for a few months, but we have needs for equipment in another state. That's mainly where we rent most of our gear, is to supplement our company owned. And as we're growing as a company and getting larger and more projects, that just becomes more prevalent year after year.
So this is Floyd Hill. This project is a widening project, and it's addressing a bunch of safety concerns. We're going to be straightening out the roadway, widening out both eastbound and westbound I-70. We're contracted to remove about 60,000 yards of material off of this project, which the majority of it is solid rock. The equipment we're using out on this project is mainly excavators, loaders, dozers. We do have a track loader out here. Some of the CAT technology that we use out on the project, we've got some GPS systems on our dozers and blades. Really takes a lot of the guesswork away from the operators, and it makes us more productive in the long run. VisionLink is a great tool when the guys in the office can sit down and look at what machines are being productive, which machines aren't, what kind of issues we're having with them, if there's any alarms going off or check engine. It's very handy from a maintenance perspective. The Cat Rental Store and Wagner have been big participants in what we have going on out here, getting through the winter. Behind us here we have a forced air heater, and then we also have our ground thaw unit here. We're in the shade the majority of the day. We get about 3 hours of sunlight, so we have our own challenges of keeping concrete heated and the ground thawed out for building structures on. The reason we rent from the Cat Rental Store is the reliability of the equipment we're renting and the versatility of what equipment they have in their fleet. What pleasantly surprises me about the equipment we get from the Cat Rental Store is the cleanliness of the machines. A lot of times we'll get them out brand new, very little hours. They're all in good working order. Just a great place to shop. What I value most about when we rent equipment, it's being able to get something on a moment's notice. With the relations that we have with the Cat Rental Store, we've got the availability to talk to mechanics after hours, and not only that, but in a pinch, if we have a ground heater go down or any of our equipment goes down, they're right on the ball, just getting things rolling to get us up and running again.
Pretty good, right? Do need to throw over to the chat. I'm beavering. I do apologise. I'm beavering away in the background to try and get that video that I promised you earlier working. I'm struggling at the moment, but I do want to throw over to this if Emma's still around. Andy Dovell says, Emma, I'm so very sorry for your loss. Hard enough to lose a parent, but when you lose your parent at work, I just can't imagine how hard that must be. Well done to you for following your dream of becoming a nurse. Keep smashing it. I'm 100% positive that your dad is immensely proud of you. Good call, sir. And Mick Saunders says, something to think about before this afternoon. Have you noticed that most companies going under are a group? Makes you wonder if they just kept a demo. If they just kept a demo, maybe things would have been different. And I think that's a very valid point, because there has been that move within Demolition to take on other roles and disciplines and responsibilities, be it asbestos, be it temporary works and all of the things that go with it. But if you're coming from a demolition background, I wonder if that is actually spreading you maybe a little bit too thin. I wonder if that's the case. We'll address that later this afternoon. But first of all, I need to do one of these.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Now, with any luck, I've actually got the sound. I've not married it to the video yet, but I've got the sound, so I may actually be able to bring you that video that I promised you earlier. Somebody's just popped into the chat. Question mark: is it going to be on Facebook later? It's going to be on all the places. And Mick, I know you're watching on Facebook at the moment, but if you're watching on Facebook, we'll be there. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on Twitter, or if you're watching on LinkedIn, we will be on all the places, much the same as we always are. Andy Dover says, hi, Gary Hickman. Very sorry to hear about Waldridge going bust. How are you, mate? I'm not seeing Gary Hickman myself because I don't see people until they actually comment. But good morning to Gary Hickman. Dan Cullen says, a very good point, Mick. Yes, all group, and there is many groups and other camo groups on the verge, has been said. Yes, there are. It really is a worrying time, and I do wonder whether that was actually the reason that I didn't sleep particularly well last night. I heard about BlueCon quite late, and molded over, and yeah, I think it was probably playing on my mind. Now, while I am trying to get some semblance of order into the show, let me go back to my script. That's probably the best place to be, I think. Yes, I think, my apologies, thrown off in so many different directions. I think those fine folks at Case have figured out the format of this show. I really do believe that. When they launched their latest generation of wheel loaders, they could have produced a single film and crammed all of the details into just one film. But instead of that, they've been slowly releasing a series of shorter films, which plays perfectly with what it is that we do here. So here's the latest, and I have to say, this one is my favorite so far.
4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Yeah, top work, Case. Love that. Really do like that. It is this time. I'm still not sure if that video is going to work for us, but it is time to remind you that Intermat is coming up. Let me remind you, like this. Here on the Breakfast Show, we love to glorify machines. We love to celebrate their innovation, their engineering, their capabilities. But Liebherr understands that those machines are just a tool that is wielded by the true heroes of this industry. It's you lot, the true heroes of this industry. Here's the proof.
Where titans of steel are essential tools, there are heroes who master them as if they were second nature. Heroes who have trained their skills down to the last detail. They understand these giants as if it were a part of them. Because powerful machines need powerful operators. Liebherr training.
Pretty cool, right? And imagine, we talk about autonomous machines here and stuff. Imagine if it was all done by gesture. Imagine you could actually summon your machine just with a flick of your hand. Now, I've got no means of testing this, so I'm going to try and bring you the video that I was hoping to bring you earlier. I don't know whether it's going to play the sound. I don't know what the sound sounds like, but I'm going to give it a try. So let me see what I can do right about now. It is this one. Fingers crossed, everyone.
Australia. On Sydney's famed harbour, beyond the towering buildings and the bridge, stood another iron giant, the historic Hammerhead Crane. Located at the Garden Island Naval Base, it took 7 years to build and was the largest crane in the Southern Hemisphere at the time of its completion in 1951. It retained this record for more than 60 years, proudly standing as a testament of the sheer size and power needed to lift warship engines, boilers, turrets and guns of up to 250 tonne. One of only a few similar structures still remaining around the globe, the Hammerhead crane was last used in 1996. And time was not kind to this hulking beast. Its condition rapidly deteriorating, the crane presented a significant risk to the safety of defence personnel in its vicinity. Compounding this problem, the crane also presented serious limitations on ship berthing options at the base. In order to free up berthing capacity for new ships due to enter service, the only viable solution is to dismantle this mammoth structure. And the team entrusted to do it? Liberty Industrial. Due to its status as a prominent landmark, the crane's removal attracted much attention and publicity brought about by public sentiment.
The giant crane at Garden Island, that could soon vanish unless supporters can pull off a miracle.
An iconic structure seen from many vantage points in and around Sydney Harbour, its removal will change the skyline forever. In order to bring down the Hammerhead crane, Liberty Industrial confronted a set of unique challenges. As a relic of Australia's naval past, the crane's historical nature obligated the salvaging of heritage components, a requirement placed by the Department of Sustainability, Environment, Water, Population and Communities. Additionally, the crew faced the constraints of a live site, restricted work area, and at times, difficult weather conditions. Add to this the sheer size and weight of the 61 metre tall structure, with its 83 metre long asymmetric horizontal steel truss boom, and it becomes clear this operation required the highest level of careful planning and execution. To meet this challenge, Liberty Industrial engineered an efficient alternative design solution, dismantling the crane in much larger sections than the original design provided for, therefore reducing the number of lifts required from 250 to just 70. This greatly reduced the exposure of Liberty's personnel to working at heights, minimising health and safety risks. To dismantle this monumental crane, Liberty Industrial used two Develon Favco tower cranes, an M120RX for access and an M2480D for heavy lifting. The project team engineered a solution to freestand the M120RX, constructing a steel support structure off the wharf and erecting the bottom third of the tower with a 55-tonne mobile crane, then completing the assembly with a 300-tonne mobile crane. Working from inside a man box off the M120RX, the team carried out spray painting and paint stripping to prepare the crane for disassembly, systematically encapsulating the crane's existing coating with a high build, flexible and waterborne acrylic paint to stabilise the structure's surface to prevent the release of lead chromate paint. The separation locations were carefully marked and the paint removed to prepare the surface for oxy-cutting, preventing the release of harmful vapours and protecting the environment along with the health of the workers. The structure was progressively dismantled in large sections in a highly choreographed sequence engineered to maintain the structural stability of the crane. The components were separated from the crane's main structure once the crew rigged each of them to the M2480D, which was then used to safely hoist parts to the ground. Given how limited the team was for workspace at ground level, the M2480D's small footprint and lift capacity were crucial. Dismantling such large heavy sections required a crane capable of heavy lifts, which is why the M2480D was chosen and deployed. Some of the sections lifted out of the structure, as in the case of the jib tip, weighed up to a massive 65 tonne. One of the many initiatives taken by Liberty Industrial to ensure the efficient success of the operation was to process scrap materials on site which meant being less restricted by the huge load sizes. Once at the designated materials processing area, a separate team further downsized the components to ready them for transportation off-site, working with a 33-ton Volvo hydraulic excavator with a shear attachment and oxy cutters to assist in the downscaling and processing of scrap materials. The processed components were then transported to an off-site recycling facility. Upon completion, approximately 1,850 tonne of steel was recycled. Adding to the difficulty of the endeavour, large parts of the crane must be salvaged and stored in their original condition, in line with the requirements imposed by the federal government. Other parts, including the crane's main hook assembly, hook platform, trolley and driver's cab, will be sent off-site for decontamination and refinishing. It was imperative these items were not damaged or structurally altered. To ensure the preservation of these valuable heritage components, Liberty Industrial developed a detailed methodology for the removal, relocation, refinishing and storage, even fabricating a specialised frame for the crane's enormous 26-tonne hook assembly, thus enabling it to hang in its original position. After 9 months of carefully planned and executed work, Liberty Industrial has successfully moved the hammerhead crane out of Garden Island and into the history books. The safety risk it presented to the Royal Australian Navy personnel has been eliminated, allowing the Department of Defence to use Garden Island to its best possible advantage, adding much needed extra wharf space for the Australian Navy and saving taxpayers over $700,000 a year in maintenance costs. Significant heritage components of the crane have been preserved and memorialised for the benefit of future generations. And with the salvage of some of Australia's richest and rarest industrial and maritime heritage, the legacy of the historic Garden Island hammerhead crane lives on, thanks to the expert dismantling and salvage capabilities of Liberty Industrial.
What a crane. What a project and what a film. My apologies for the confusion earlier. Yeah, trying to put the show together at 4:30 in the morning is probably not a good idea because things fall through the cracks like the sound, but I'm certainly glad we stuck with it and managed to get that out. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm due to go live again in just over 2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours and 22 minutes, I think it is. So, as it stands at the moment, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to say. All I know is that 4 demolition companies going under in the space of 3 months is something that needs to be spoken about, and nobody else is going to do it. I'm sure there will be those that choose to ignore it, and there will also be some that choose to try to put a positive spin on it. Good luck with that. So I'm planning to be done and dusted here by 11 or maybe just after. Peter McKenna's here as well, by the way. I've already all been watching from the start, but this is the first time I've been able to comment. Been doing other things. I hope they were good things. Hope you enjoyed yourself. So that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. Lots and lots to discuss this morning and this afternoon as well. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon, tomorrow, or this afternoon, better still, 1 o'clock this afternoon, when we return with that, an industry in crisis. That's what we'll be talking about this afternoon. If you can join us, then please do so. But in the meantime, I'll be back with the Craic immediately after this final word from our key show sponsor. Oh, the confusion in the ranks this morning. I can only apologise. Let me go back to the beginning of the chat. And my apologies about the sound earlier. I won't even begin to try to explain it to you. But I've got my sound. My sound goes into this microphone and goes on one channel into my ears. But there's another channel, and that's the broadcast channel. And for reasons that I cannot begin to understand, the broadcast channel was switched off. It's switched on now, which is why you can hear me. Good morning, Bill. Good morning. Mark Whiting was first off the mark this morning. Good morning, Mark. Mark was first off the mark. Yes, Mark sounds like a dog with a hair lip. Good morning to you, Mark. Whiting Andy Darvell says, good morning. Another one bites the dust. Not good at all. Yes, our friend the Darvelous Andy Darvell making reference to the news that we have brought you this morning over on demolitionnews.com, that Bluecon Demolition up in Solihull has become the latest demolition company to go under. It's 4 in just 3 months. Obviously, we had Squibb Group and McCormack back in November. We had Waldridge just yesterday, and we have now had Bluecon. Now, that is the order in which we're reporting them. That may not be the order in which they've actually gone under, because it does appear that Bluecon basically slipped under the radar while I wasn't paying attention. So they actually went at the very end of January. So I may be slightly out of sequence, but it doesn't matter about the sequence. It doesn't even matter about the cause and effect. But 4 demolition companies. And I've been back through the Demolition News archives back to 2008, 2009. And yes, the recession did mean that we lost a fair few companies, but we didn't lose that many, and we certainly didn't lose them in such quick succession. This is an exceptional time. And when you know in your heart of hearts that there are others that are teetering on the brink, it is very worrying indeed. Now, why has my music gone off? Oh, I can see exactly why it's gone off. Right, so cracking on. Good morning, Gary Muirhead, who says, good morning, Mark. Good morning, guys. Thank you very much indeed for our question of the day, which we'll come to in just a second. Kerry Jones is here. Jim Turner is here as well. Dan Cullen is here. Glenn Johnson is here. And then we had lots of people telling me that I was miming. I am the Marcel Marceau of the demolition world. Andy Darvell also pointing out, lots and lots of people pointing out. Thank you for that. The problem was I was so busy talking, I wasn't looking at the chat, so I didn't actually know that I was talking to myself. And there's Ken Hatcher as well saying good morning. Good morning to you all, one and all. Chris Ford, is this advanced warning? I haven't seen the weather report. Good morning, folks. Back to the thermal underwear tomorrow. I hadn't heard about that. What is it saying? My weather app doesn't appear to be working for some reason. That's a bit of a worry. Okay, well, thermal underwear it is. As I say, lots of people pointing out the fact that there was no sound. And this Alex, not just me who can't hear him. Yes, it wasn't just you. But Kerry Jones gave his lip reading skills a workout. How did that work out for you? What was I saying? Did it make any sense? It'll be a first if it did. Let's have a look. Yes, what have we got today? We've got 75% chance of rain. Doesn't look that cold tomorrow. We've got 11 degrees down in leafy Surrey. Mick Saunders says, good morning. I think the housing sites are the same. Yes. Well, again, I think there is obviously cause and effect with these things. And there has been a downturn in the house building industry. And, for those of you that have been watching this show from the outset, you will know that for a long period, best part of 3 or 4 years, the house building sector accounted for somewhere between a third and a half of all UK construction output. That is not the case at the moment. Obviously, there has been a downturn on that. Has that had a knock-on effect for the demolition industry? I'm sure it has. But I don't believe that was the cause when it came to Squibb's issues dated back a lot further than that. And frankly, some of their projects, or a lot of their projects, were much, much bigger than house building. But you'd have to say, if there's not a demand at the moment for house building, there will be projects that should be up for demolition that currently aren't. Stir that into the mix with the embodied carbon concerns and the fact that a lot of projects that would normally have just been given a big tick in the box to demolish are now being kicked back upstairs for further scrutiny because of embodied carbon. There has unquestionably been a slowing, I think, in demolition workload. But again, I do keep coming back to this idea of demolition companies companies, but demolition companies, construction companies, do not fold overnight. This has been the build-up over a period of months and months, quite possibly even years. And I do wonder if, we'll come back to Mick Saunders' point in just a moment, but I do wonder if there is something more fundamentally underlying all of this and all of these collapses that we need to address. Gary Muirhead says, is there another big name demo company next? I fear there is. I don't want that to be the case, but I fear there is. Chris Ford says, I thought I'd gone deaf. The phone wasn't working. Turns out I'm not as daft as I look. Nobody could be that daft. I couldn't possibly comment. Gary Muirhead, with his question of the day, was this: what skill would you like to learn or acquire this year? Yeah, my son Fred plays guitar ridiculously well. In actual fact, he's written a new piece of music that we're just looking for an opportunity to use now, actually. But that's and it's not even on guitar, but that's an aside. But he did try to teach me guitar once for about 15 seconds, realised I was a complete idiot and gave up. So, yes, I'd love to learn to play guitar, and I'm not alone. Gary Muirhead says, I've always wanted to learn guitar. Who knows, maybe this year. But yeah, I've actually downloaded it. I've not had a time, and I'm taking on too much. That's the problem. As I say, I've set myself this target of reading 50 books in the year, and I'm up to 9 now. It's only February. It's only the beginning of February, and I've done 9. But I have downloaded the Babbel app to try and teach myself some conversational Italian between now and May, when I'm back there next. And I'm back there purely for pleasure. It's mine and my good lady's wedding anniversary in May. So we are going back to Bergamo. And I'd like nothing more than to be able to walk into a restaurant, have a quick chat with the waiter, and say thank you properly when he delivers my pasta and increases my diabetes level. Dan says there's another demolition firm going down too. Heard it yesterday. Dan, WhatsApp group, please, because I wonder if it's the same one that I'm hearing about. But if you've got any skills that you would like to learn this year, or that you're already working on, please let us know. Obviously, lots and lots of guesses on our mystery machine. But Gary Muirhead, quick as a flash, came up with the JCB 2CX Streetmaster. Precisely what it was. Can't argue with that. Chris Ford says, I think I need to put reading glasses on. Phone screen isn't big enough. I do realise there are limitations with the mystery machine, but I can't think of a better way of doing it, to be perfectly honest. And you do seem to enjoy it. Jim Turner says, question of the day, converting site offices into houses, because if I'm doing that, it means my planning application has been approved. But on a serious note, writing silly rhymes, poetry, stories. I'm just about to knock up a kid's book about our farming. What a fantastic idea. Fantastic idea. I mean, I've done a couple of children's books. Very, very popular, and you know, it's a nice thing to do. So it's a lovely legacy to have. And we were talking, was it yesterday? I think it may have been. I think our question of the day yesterday was, if you won the lottery, what would you do? And we got to talking about that as a family last night, 3 or 4 of us anyway. And you know, I'd go off on a round the world cruise, and I'd buy this car, and all those sort of things. I wouldn't stop writing. I really wouldn't. It's built in. I have no choice. It flows forth. I've just had a WhatsApp. Dan? Yes, we are talking about the same company, just so you know. This one came completely out of left field, and if I wasn't confused enough by my overnight insomnia, then this really did knock me over. And that's Emma Moore saying, I'm currently doing my nursing on the job, as it was a job my dad said I should always pursue. I'm almost done with 5 years since he was killed 5 years ago today at Longannet Power Station. And for those of you who don't know, I'm trying to remember, the names don't tally, but I'm fairly sure, I'm assuming that Emma must be married in that case, because the guy that was killed up at Longannet was Gary Robertson, who I'm assuming, I hope I'm assuming correctly, I'm assuming is Emma's father, and he was killed up at Longannet. And yes, I can see it now. I'm just tracing back. Tracing back through my own reporting, which has gone on for 5 years. I mean, it was only April last year that damages were finally settled. So I can only imagine what Emma and her family have been through since. As I've come to expect with the people that we have on this show. It's funny, actually. I think if from the outside looking in, you would think that that our audience comprises mainly hairy-ass digger drivers. There are a fair few digger drivers, and some of their asses are unquestionably hairy. But they are good people. They're good people. Gary Muirhead, sorry for your loss. Footy sends his condolences. Dan Cullen sends his condolences. Mick Saunders does exactly the same. Jim Turner, sorry about your dad, Emma, and fair play for doing him proud. Lots and lots and lots of people saying exactly the same thing. Kerry Jones, sorry, Emma, can't imagine your pain. And there's Emma saying, thank you very much. I'm going to go back over to Andy Delvell as well. Emma, I'm so sorry for your loss. It's hard enough to lose a parent. When you lose your parent at work, I just can't imagine how hard that must be. Well done to you for following your dream of becoming a nurse. Keep smashing it. I'm 100% positive that your dad is immensely proud of you. And I'm just looking back, and I'm fairly sure, assuming I've got my facts straight, I think Gary Robertson, who, again, I'm assuming to be Emma's father, was 55. He was 55 when he died. So he would now be probably 59, which makes him the same age as me. Puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Back to the question of the day. Chris Ford says, to finally play the guitar so it doesn't annoy anyone. It's nice to dream. A second choice, operate a drag line. That would be nice. That would be nice. And I think that actually triggers something else. I know Dan Cullen picked up on the cat rental thing, 1,400 pieces of equipment. Jim Turner says to Chris Ford, good shout, I'd like a shift on the drag line too. I always pick 22 on my lottery numbers because I want a 22 RB. I am going to try and factor this one in. Mick Saunders says about the number of companies going under. Something to think about before this afternoon. Have you noticed that most companies going under are a group? Makes you wonder if they just kept a demo, perhaps things may have been different. Are they spreading themselves too thin? There was a time a couple of years ago where it seemed like the most sensible thing possible to diversify into other areas. Groundworks, temporary works, asbestos, engineering, and all of the things that go with it. But now, are they spreading themselves too thin? Do they actually have the expertise to go in all of those directions? I think that begs a question. And I think there are other questions, and I want to address most of them on the show this evening, or this afternoon rather. But I do think there have been some mighty shifts in the industry, and I wonder if they are all for the better. One of the things that's occurred to me is the way that the industry has changed, evolved. There used to be a time when you would have local demolition companies who did local work. Didn't really travel much more than 20, 30, maybe 50 miles down the road. Everything they did was on their own doorstep. Everybody knew everybody else. And we now have these major national companies. And there was a time when those national companies basically hoovered up all the big work. So if there was a power station to come down, they would win it. There was a huge tower block to come down in the middle of a city centre, they would win it. But the rest would, knocking down a couple of old terraced houses to make more for some more terraced houses, that went down to the local contractor. But my feeling is that some of these major contractors have now got so large that they've created a beast that is almost impossible to feed. And one of the things that I hear regularly, and I certainly heard it in the run-up to the collapse of Squibb Group, was that Squibb were out basically competing for the kind of work that in previous years they would have probably seen as beneath them. Now, that might have been caused by their financial situation. They may have been doing that to try and get more work in, to keep men and machines moving and everything else. But I wonder if that's the case. And there's another point. I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was talking about not just the collapses, but he was talking about project and contract price and perceived price. Again, going back to the times gone by, you paid your money, you took your choice. You know, if you went with the local company, their equipment might not be quite so good. It might be a bit unreliable. Maybe the training that they'd given their staff wasn't quite as good as one of the big name contractors. And as a result, they were that much cheaper than one of the big name contractors. If you had a big project to go to take care of, you'd go to one of the big names because their equipment was factory fresh, all of their staff were trained to within an inch of their life, and you paid a premium for that. The moment that you've got those big name contractors now competing for knocking down a toilet block rather than a tower block, you are now getting the industry elite for the industry non-elite price. Now, not only does that bring the price down, which impacts everybody else, but it also brings down the developer, the client, the main contractor's perception of price. You know, it used to be a case of we can get a X company for that price, but if we really want the top dog, we go to that price. Now, you can largely get them for much the same price. Is that a good thing? We'll be discussing that later. Is the show on Facebook later? It most certainly is. It most certainly is. And Dan Cullen agreeing. Yes, there are other groups on The Verge. Not seen it as yet, but Gary Hickman was apparently watching. Didn't see him actually make a comment, but if he does, I'll pick that up as we go through. That is a beast of a compact shovel. Yeah, I have to say that. What was that? The case 8? Was it the 851G? I think it was the 851G, was it? Let me just check, make sure I've got, it was the 651G, my apologies. But yeah, really smart machine, have to say. Going back to the discussion about drag lines, Mick Saunders says, Jim, I know a fella who is rebuilding an old RB22 down in Kent, which then triggers somebody else to say, Mick Norton says to Mick Saunders, I have a 22RB operator handbook if he needs any pictorial assistance. Mick then says, I'm not sure what he's been working from, but I would gladly buy that off you as a present for him. And Mick says it's not for sale, but gladly loan him the handbook, as I've done twice previously to other restorers. Keep going round and round in circles with these operator manuals. I mentioned when we were watching that film from Liebherr about the heroes of the industry and beckoning your machine. Jim Turner says it could easily come to that. Technology is already out there, a chip in the brain, and we'd only need to think to get the machine working. Does anyone remember a Clint Eastwood movie from, I'm going to take a wild stab at the early 1980s, and I'm fairly sure the film was called Firefox? Fairly sure it was called Firefox. And in the movie, Clint Eastwood played an elite fighter pilot, obviously American, but he was given the job of stealing a Russian fighter jet. The problem with stealing the fighter jet was the fact that it was controlled by fault, and in order for him to steal it, he had to think in Russian. When Jim said that, a chip in your brain, that's all you need, I immediately thought of that. Yeah, but there are actions, and I don't know if it's on the iPhone, but there are certainly actions on some mobile phones where you can trigger something on the phone just by a gesture. I think, is it zoom in and out on your camera remotely? I think you can do that. We've also got drones where you can literally raise your hand and the thing takes off. All of that exists, as Jim rightly says. Mick Saunders says, good bit of deconstruction, I've got to say. It most certainly was. There's some work involved there. Our friend Jez, who we know is down under, originally said, good place. And he then goes on to say, providing more jobs for our country. Liberty Industrial. I tip my cap to you. Incidentally, and I'm fairly sure I mentioned this on the show, there was a meeting of the New South Wales Demolition Association just before Christmas, and I had an email completely out of the blue from the wife of a guy called Frank D'Angelo, who is the current president of that association. And I speak to Frank on a a fairly regular basis, either here or over on Instagram. Never met face to face, but we have communicated quite a bit. But his wife contacted me and said, we've got this meeting, a Christmas meeting coming up. Frankie's the president. Could you possibly record a video message? And this morning, and I realise it's February, but they sent me a video of Frank and his colleagues watching me on a big screen. I'm quite proud of that. Yeah, I delivered a Christmas message to Frank D'Angelo and the team at the New South Wales Demolition Association, all the way from here, because they wouldn't pay me to go there. I don't blame them one bit. Footy says, what an awesome job. Yeah, and I'm really glad that Footy picked up on the environment thing there. Obviously, taking down a crane, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's not the first time we've seen it. But even stripping back the paint because of fear of contamination, proper job. Andy Dalvell says, wow, what a job, and it can only be Liberty taking a challenge like that. You're 100% right. There is Peter McKenna. Glad to see you here, Peter. Jez is saying good evening, because it is evening where he is. Dan Cullen, I've heard that a very well-known demo firm is on the rocks, been told by a number of guys. Yeah, we've been following. I'm not going to say it out loud, because as it stands at the moment, it is little more than speculation. But there is at least one more. I heard a rumor yesterday that, if true, will probably rock the entire industry on its arse, to be honest. I'm hoping they're both untrue, but yes, it is tough out there. All of this is a reflection. Dan Cullen has been telling us for ages that his WhatsApp groups have been going absolutely mental. There's a reason for that. It's because people are being laid off. And one of the concerns that I have, and again, we'll get into this a bit more depth this afternoon, is when a demolition firm goes under in isolation, the people that have worked there, particularly those that work at site level, just kind of dissipate into the industry. They'll go and work for the local rival, or they'll go and work for somebody a little bit further afield. But they stay within the industry, and 50 guys get laid off, and within a few weeks, you'd like to think that probably 45 of them are back in full-time employment with another demolition company. My concern is that when you lose 4 companies in 3 months, suddenly you have a glut. You've got more, you potentially, particularly given the current workloads, you've potentially got more workers than you have work to give them. So the impact of those collapses is even greater. We'll discuss that again this afternoon. Question of the day. Peter McKenna says, obtain my red cards to complete my ADT training when it's been sorted by Chris Monks Senior. Good luck with that. Good luck to everybody with learning their new skills. What is it? Lifelong leaders or lifelong learners? Listen, I'm not holding myself up as some example of ongoing education, but I am forever learning something new. I taught myself the finer points of live streaming, although based on the sound issues we had earlier today, you wouldn't know it. I've taught myself video editing. I've taught myself so many things over the years, and I continue to do so. I literally spent most of this past weekend, teaching myself Apple Notes and Apple Reminders, because I am determined not to let so much fall out of my head. I'm a man of a certain age, and I have a very limited attention span. And one of my biggest issues, and I realise that goes against the fact that I'm working with electronics, is I think of an idea and I think I need to get that down, and I reach my mobile phone, get my mobile phone out of the pocket, and by the time I've got it open, I'm now looking at Instagram. And I've looked at Instagram for 5 minutes, and now I'm thinking, I'm sure I came here for something else and I don't know what it is. So that's why I'm using Apple Notes and Reminders, and I've taught myself. And what about those guys that have worked for these companies for years? That is the big issue. Yeah, that is the big issue. And we've said this before, when I had Mine is a different set of circumstances, but you get to a certain age, I think. You know, I've done largely the same job for 32 years under various guises. You know, I'd done it as an employed person, as a self-employed person, as a journalist, as a PR person, as a journalist again. But, you know, when you get to 55 years old, you're pretty sure, I don't think you ever discuss it, but I think you're pretty sure that you are going to see that career out until you retire. And then in my instance, COVID came along, and all of a sudden, I couldn't do that job anymore. Hence the reason that I took myself to do this. Imagine that, you know, particularly with some of these companies, you know, particularly the smaller local companies, there's every possibility, you know. Squibb Group had been trading for 75 years. Waldridge had been trading for 50 years. There was every possibility there had been people there that were there man and boy. And then they're told one day, actually, don't bother coming in. The company doesn't exist anymore. What do you do then? Does anybody want to employ? My answer to this is they should. But given the choice, do you want to employ a 55, 56, 60-year-old digger driver who might be a bit set in his ways, having been employed for that long? Or would you rather have somebody of 25 years old who has got their tickets, know enough, but can then be moulded? It's tough. It is a tough one. Mick says to Mick, I'll call him after Mark's show and let him know, then contact you. Thank you. It's the Tinder of the show again, isn't it? Apparently, Manchester has a fair bit of snow coming, and Peter McKenna says, bring it on. I love snow, just don't like the dickheads that can't drive in it. Fair comment. Peter McKenna says, block of flats in the city is being demolished top down. Can't see much scaffolding and dust suppression blankets surrounding the top of the building. Jim Turner says, I'll be running my book past you, if that's all right, as I respect your opinion and you're the only writing expert I know. Listen, I'd love to read it. That was why I was involved. I did very precious little to it, but that was why I was involved in Terry Cornby's Dr. Demolition book. He sent me the draft. I read it, reread it, made a couple of suggestions, and then it was published. I'd love to do that. Love to see what you're up to. So yes, please keep me informed. That's not going to go down too well, and NFDC needs to do more for demolition companies involved. Well, if you think that we've lost 4 demolition companies in 3 months, 3 of them were NFDC members. The NFDC is over there and I'm over here, and we both do our own thing. But the NFDC's membership numbers are at the lowest they have ever been. And they are now losing, primarily through insolvencies, they are now losing members way, way, way faster than they can bring them on board. So what is the knock-on effect there? I've said before, you know, I do have my issues with the NFDC, and yes, I'll be the first to admit it, and I've said it to them as well. But this industry does deserve a trade association. It doesn't necessarily deserve the one it's got at the moment, but it deserves a trade association. But I think the last time I counted, it was about 130 members. You know, at what point does it cease to be meaningful? You know, is it if it drops below 100, or does it have to go right down to 20 before somebody says this is just not worth carrying on with? And what is being done? I mean, bearing in mind, I've not looked this morning, but bearing in mind, when I looked yesterday, Waldridge was still listed as an NFDC member. They're not, because they don't exist anymore. Are the NFDC, is the IDE, is anybody else actually responding to this? Are they getting their people together? And they had, back in the day when they had in office the worst president in their entire history, they did actually throw an extraordinary general meeting up at the JCB head office of the world headquarters up in Uttoxeter to address apathy within the Federation ranks. to my mind, an extraordinary general meeting is kind of, maybe not an extraordinary general meeting, but certainly an emergency meeting to address the current situation in the demolition industry is more than in order, I would say. I don't rely on them to do anything, which is precisely why we're doing this afternoon's show. Question date, not sure I want to learn anything new these days, got enough old crap running around in my head. Yeah, well, listen, I'm exactly the same, but I do like with this show, you know, when I literally decided on a Friday that I was going to do a live show, spent the entire Saturday, entire Sunday teaching myself how to do it, and then went live on the Monday morning. And when it came up that we were live and that people were watching, really proud moment. I really do quite like that. Dan Cutler says, in my honest opinion, I think the Demolition Group thing, Baz are going a little over their heads, no clue how to manage the process other than demo. It's an interesting one, that, because when you trace the origin story of some of those demolition companies, even some of those at the very upper echelons of the industry now, they came from outside. You had muckaway and haulage companies who saw what demolition was about, kind of second hand, and thought, I'll have a stab at that. And here we are 40, 50, 60 years later, and they are the industry elite. So I don't necessarily have an issue with diversification, but I wonder what the cost of that diversification is. Obviously, it increases the wage bill, it increases your exposure to risk, and it does spread you awfully thin. Dan says, I hear there's now uproar on Squib Yard, a lot of contamination in the muck. Can they be charged for disposal of contaminated products? The problem is, when it gets down to the last knockings, pretty much anything goes. I don't think that's unique to Squibs at all. Let's have a look. Clint Eastwood never be able to steal a Russian fighter plane without the Russian equivalent of a CSCS card. That would make spying really problematic, wouldn't it? If you had to apply to the Russian embassy for a CSCS card so that you could spy on them. Were you wearing your hat when you gave your video speech? I was wearing a hat. I think I was wearing the old streamer hat, which is there. Mark, next thing, you'll be streaming from Australia. I'd love to. I watched, there's a guy who has indirectly helped shape this show. There's a guy on YouTube called Kirk Nugent, good looking black fella, got the voice of a preacher, deep voice, but he's very good at live streaming. And I learned a lot from Kirk. And we fired emails back and forth and what have you. But he's traveling at the moment, and he actually did a live stream from a hotel room Saturday this week. And aside from the fact that the backdrop was different, you would never have known the difference. Because of modern technology now, would I necessarily want to be taking stream decks and the fancy lighting with me? No, probably not. But the ability to live stream remotely, it exists. And I will, for those of you that's been watching the show for any length of time, I have been in discussion for quite some time with JCB about live streaming direct from the JCB factory. I'm actually up there on Monday and Tuesday next week. I'm not going to be live streaming because we've actually got a full program, but I am going to be mentioning it to them again because I would love to do that. I'd love to do one from somebody else's facility, and who better than JCB, in my opinion. Let's have a look. Chris Ford, be careful, Jim. You know the true meaning of expert. X is someone who has been a spurt. X is someone who has been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. That sounds like me. Yeah, that makes me an expert. Let's have a look. Mick Saunders says NFTC joke. They are, in answer to Dan's question there, why don't they update their industry and attract more companies? They are trying. The problem you've got is there are, in the best possible way, there are members and there are members. There was talk some time ago about the NFDC basically allowing the entire industry into the federation, and they would then be audited and vetted. Those that were up to scratch would stay in the NFDC. Those that were not would be kicked out. And there is some value to that. But for many years, and I don't think it's been the case probably for a decade or more, but for many years, the NFDC rested upon the laurels of reputation. Most of its biggest members were the biggest and best demolition contractors in the country. So, when you've got the likes of Erith and McGee and Keltbray and DSM and all of those big name players as part of your membership, you can go and knock on the door of the UK Contractors Group as was, or the Build UK as it is today, and say, we are the biggest, we are the best, we are the elite, you should be dealing with us. And you'd have a valid argument for that. The problem is with the Federation now, obviously they've lost Squibb, who was one of their big players, through financial collapse and whatever. In order to swell their ranks now, there aren't any more of those out there. They're basically going to have to take on companies that in previous years and previous decades they wouldn't have touched with the barge pole. And every time they do that, they dilute any claim at elite status that they currently have. Regardless on your personal feelings towards any of the companies, if you spoke to anybody in the demolition industry and said, who are the big names, who are the big proper players in this industry, and they would all say Erith, Keltbray, McGee, Squibb, DSM, all of whom, with the exception of Squibb, are members of the NFDC. They have helped propel the NFDC to this elite status. If you're allowing Fred Blogg's Demolition, incorporated in 2003, or more specifically 2020, is that really enhancing your elite status? Or is it just swelling the coffers because they're paying their membership fees? Seems like the NFC just sitting on their asses doing nothing. Not a word about the current situation. Nothing out of them about the current situation with the state of the sector. Nothing out of them when red diesel was being pushed to the sidelines. Nothing out of them on the subject of embodied carbon. Nothing out of them at all. And I do occasionally pop past and have a look at the news section on the NFDC website. And there's nothing. If anyone can tell me something that the NFDC have done in the last 5-10 years that has actually moved the needle in a positive way in the demolition industry, please let me know. And if you can do that, I will announce it right here. But I can't think of a single thing. They used to do guidance notes. They used to host meetings to address specific issues. Now they meet once a year to pat each other on the back and to hand out spurious awards. Demolition Operator of the Year. Based on what? Have you been out and seen them? Have you seen their work? Or is this just somebody's filled in a form and you're going to give it to the company that's currently in favour? It's a nonsense. And I think they're letting the industry down. I really do. Dan says he'll try and tune in at 1. Are you doing a live stream from Hillhead? 99.99999% sure, no. Because there is not sufficient quality internet signal. We tried last year and we found if I stood on one leg at the very edge of the MB Crusher stand, I had an internet connection. If I went and stood round the back where there were no people at the Caterpillar finning stand, I had an internet signal, neither of which was strong enough to broadcast a live stream like this, but I had an internet connection. Everywhere else, dead zone, absolute dead zone. So I don't think so. Mick Silver says, sitting here and jotting down different things I could attribute to firm's demise. Bloody hell, so many things. Let me know what they are. Love to hear from you. well, what I've seen over the years. I can only imagine. I can remember roughly 50-odd local demo firms, East and South London. At some point, they got bought out by someone who was bigger. That is the only reason they became elite. And even that, what I have an issue with this as a notion. A lot of demolition companies have, as Nick has rightly pointed out, they've bought other companies. And in some instances, they run them separately and in the background as a lower cost option. And sometimes they just lie dormant. Two things on that. If I went to buy a new phone, I walked into the shop and said, I'd like the iPhone 16, please. And they said, yes, that'll be £1,647. Bloody hell, that's a bit expensive. Or you can have this Android for 45 quid. To my mind, that demeans their brand because they've got a good option or they've got a low cost option. So that's one point. But the other point on having companies in the background lying dormant. Squibb owned other demolition companies, and in all likelihood, some of the directors may well bounce back under that different guise. Who else are we going to talk about? Waldridge. I spoke to a guy last night who believes that Waldridge will bounce back under another name. And again, bearing in mind these are limited companies, so they go under owing lots and lots of money to lots and lots of people, but they can shut up shop, move on, and pick up where they left off under a new name, possibly even before the other firm has completely gone under. So you've got all of that going on as well. And then third, there is a company that there are lots and lots of rumours and speculation about a company, and they are basically trying to divert their current business into a separate business whilst retaining their presence in the NFDC. Should they be allowed to? We'll discuss all of that this afternoon. Mick Norton says many comparisons between demolition and piling industries, both good and bad. Listen, they are all a part of the construction industry, and many of the things that I think the demolition industry has done wrong, but not necessarily of its own volition. I think some of the things that are going on in demolition now are not of demolition's choosing. It has been foisted upon them, and it is things like take value engineering as an example. You've got a tower block to take down, and you put it out to tender, and you give it to the lowest price bid. The lowest price bid was, let's work in nice round figures. Let's say it was £1 million, and the developer says, yes, we agree, £1 million. And how long is that going to take? Well, it's going to take 4 months. Fantastic. Okay, so £1 million, 4 months. Brilliant. Sign, shake hands, gentleman's agreement. Everyone's happy. When do we start? We can start on Monday. Fantastic. And you turn up on the Monday and the developer says, that £1 million, we'd like a 10% discount on that. And you said 4 months. We kind of need it done in 2. And bizarrely, the demolition industry, who has a reputation, a well-earned reputation for its ability to tell people to fuck off, rather than doing that when they are told 10% discount and half the allotted time, they go, right, you answer. So guess what? That developer or that client, that main contractor, next time they're looking for demolition work, not only are they going to be looking for a reduced price, they're going to be looking for it to be done double quick. And what is that? What is the knock-on effect of that? If you price that job sensibly, I realise, a lot of demolition contractors in the UK work on single-digit margins, which doesn't really allow you much flex when, the scrap price goes sideways, or somebody pays you very, very late, or hits you with retentions and that kind of thing. So there's very little flex there anyway. But then there is the knock-on effect further down the line. What happens to their supply chain? And so it goes on. That's how they became a group. As a demo company, Colton, a smaller firm, and he still kept the name too. Yeah, that's fairly common practice. Oh, well, it's that time. Hound pining for his favourite tree. Stay safe, gents. Catch you this afternoon. Mick, look forward to it. Yes, we will be. I'm going to call it a day right now. Let me get rid of that. That's what we're going to be back to talk about at 1 o'clock this afternoon. And we're going to be talking about it because nobody else is. What does that tell you? Yeah. Make up your own mind. Anyway, I'm going to be back here at 1 o'clock. Hopefully I'll be awake. I'm going to go and have another cup of coffee now. I'm going to make sure that the audio is working before I go live. I hope to see you all then. 1 o'clock this afternoon. An industry in crisis. Coming to a screen near you very soon. Till then, everybody, have a good day. And please, stay safe, stay warm, stay dry. Please, for the love of all that's holy, stay in business, would you? Thanks. Be much appreciated.